Hello and welcome to another edition of Top of Mind with Doug. I've been especially looking forward to doing this one because this is the first time that I've had a special guest on the show. And with me today, I have Harrison Ryll. Harrison and I, we've been friends for about 10 years, probably or so. Matter of fact, my family is friends with the Ryll family, Jabin and Mandy and Levi. So, pleasure to do this. About 2 months ago, Harrison asked if he and I could read a book together. And he even let me choose the book. So I said, well, sure, that sounds like fun. And so we've met over the last 4 Saturdays, and we've reviewed notes and shared our thoughts on The Richest Man in Babylon. It's a very good book. You'll find it on the top 10 or top 20. It's very high on the must-read books, especially when it comes to personal finance. This was written by George S. Clason, written in 1926. So kind of cool that we're reading this in 2026. So it's 100 years old this year for what that is worth. This is a very entertaining read. It has stories and anecdotes as relates to ageless wisdom of finance. So it goes back to Babylon. The book is fictional. They're claiming 5,000 years ago there was a city in Babylon that had no real geographic advantage or any advantage, but due to their ingenuity and good handling of money, this became a very rich society. In spite of the society being rich, it turns out that most people there, had very little money. They had what they will call a lean purse, and we'll get into that. But what's cool about this is it conveys the message in a fun and entertaining kind of way, and one I think that the readers find more easy to memorize. It's not just dry material. And so, discusses how to earn money, save money, invest money so you can grow it, and then protect the money. So it really is a fun read. Central to the stories are what they call 7 cures for a lean purse. And a lean purse is a purse without any money. And it needs to be cured or else it's going to stay lean. So Harrison and I are going to walk through. There's more to the book than these 7 cures, but this is kind of the focus of our discussion today, the 7 cures. But before you talk about cure number 1, Harrison, just wondering if you might have anything to say in regards of open introduction, and after that, just go ahead and lead into cure 1 and your thoughts on cure 1.
Yeah, this book was definitely something that is coming at the right place and the right time, especially coming from someone that I admire so much as Mr. Weichhorst. Learning the teachings of this book through the lens of you has definitely been something that has been, maybe even life-changing. But to put it short and sweet, this book is amazing. And like you said, the 7 cures to a lean purse are only a small snippet of all of the greatness that you can get from this book. And starting off with cure number 1, which is titled, Start Thy Purse to Fattening. Now, that sounds like, you're going to gorge your purse with, all this and that. But start thy purse to fattening is essentially, if your purse is lean, then obviously it needs food and you need to start feeding it. And one course of action that this book gives to start thy purse to fattening is saving 10%. From every paycheck, put 10% aside for savings and do it faithfully. And I think that faithfully part is extremely important, because you might counter and say, well, I need that 10% for this and that and a third thing. And if you do it faithfully, you will see the benefits. If you don't do it faithfully, then you'll maybe take 10%, here, 10% there, 10% there, but then you'll start taking from that savings and taking from your purse, as I've done, and you'll see that progression has kind of landslide down and pick it back up, restart, but doing it faithfully, that's very important. But yeah, that would be cure number 1. I'm going to pass it back over to Mr. Whitehorse to continue on to cure number 2.
Cure number 2 is control thy expenditure. Now, what was notable here is that, like in any society, there were people that had large incomes and people that had small incomes. But to a large degree, whether people made a lot of money or a little, they still had a lean purse. And so that this implied that most people spent what they made. And if their income increased, well, they just moved into a bigger house, or they bought another car, or they subscribed to another service, or whatever, and they spent the money. And so the idea here is control thy expenditures. So how do you control thy expenditures? Well, you do it by establishing a budget that says you're only going to spend this much across certain categories, and that you are going to live by what we call delayed gratification. And that means that you're going to look out for your future self. Still have fun in the present, but you're gonna do those things responsibly today, so that you leave yourself a good future. And it's a quote here: "Make your budget thy first assistant in defending thy fattening purse." So you're going to control your expenditures. That's cure number 2.
Cure number 3, which is titled "Guard Thy Treasure from Loss," I would title "Be Smart and Think Twice." If an opportunity seems too good to be true, it probably is. I've heard that many a time. I'm sure everyone else has heard that many a time. But at the end of the day, if it's too good to be true, you'll see it through rose-colored lenses, and you can say, "Oh, that seems awesome. I'm going to do that." And then one story in the book that is mentioned is the story of Arcad, who is the richest man in Babylon of the story. And in the beginnings of his savings chronicles, he decides to entrust his money to a bricklayer to go and buy jewels in some far off country. And he says, "Well, this sounds great." He says that there's a lot of opportunity there. Doesn't even think twice about giving his money to a bricklayer, first of all, someone who may not even have any idea what jewels are worth. But I don't even know if he knows the guy in the first place. So it seems too good to be true. Ends up losing that money and does not guard his purse, does not guard his treasure from loss, ends up losing that money. Even smart decisions. Do your homework and investigate before acting. Think twice before making a bad decision, before making a good decision, because that house could seem really nice, but it may have termites all filled up with it. Or it might seem really good, but maybe it's just not the right time to buy that house, or whatever expenditure that might be coming your way. But needless to say, be smart, think twice, and guard your treasure from loss.
Excellent. Cure number 4 is make thy gold multiply. And a quote is, "In income that continues to come, whether thou work or travel." So in other words, even if your primary income stream is cut off, you're still making money. And why is that? It's because your money is making money. And so think of every dollar saved, every dollar invested is actually an employee. And so that employee is out being productive, working for you every day. And what this looks like over time, let's just say for a married couple, is that even if they're both working, he's got an income, she's got an income, but their money also has an income. So it's like a 3-income house, even though there's only 2 working, because you're making thy gold multiply. And this also, if you think of in the Bible, in the parable of talents, that's really what was the idea. If you remember, one was given 1 talent to go multiply, and another 2, and another 5. And the one with the 2 multiplied it, and the one with the 5 multiplied it, but the one with the 1 did not. So he failed cure number 4. He did not make his gold multiply.
Yeah, and Cure number 5, increase thy ability to earn, or as I like to say, desire to always improve. One thing I've written down is find joy in the work that you do. Strive to do better. Don't sit idle and wait for someone to recognize your work ethic. Increase your skill and add value to your work. This can go as far as increasing your enjoyment in your work, and you don't see it as a burden when you go into work. This is going to help increase your image, how you carry yourself. You'll be more confident in your work, and that'll probably rub off on the people around you and make your work environment better. It'll make yourself more of a leader and maybe make yourself look a bit more presentable to your employer, which would lead to increasing your ability to earn, which would maybe earn your way to a salary increase or afford you more benefits or anything like that. But important is the ability. If you have no drive to increase your ability, then your ability is not going to keep up with your desires. If your desires are weak, I think, then your progression towards increasing your ability will be slowed. But if your desire is pure and your desire is faithful to wanting to earn more and wanting to do better work and wanting to enjoy your work more, I think your ability will pay its dividends.
Excellent. Cure number 6 is make thy dwelling a profitable investment. And so historically, for many people, as they approach a retirement age, their home becomes one of their largest assets. That's right up there with 401k and perhaps some other savings. But to have a paid-for home is something that I think everybody should seek to do. I do allow a little grace right now because I think home prices have kind of got a little bit wonky. And so at this point, I don't think that everybody needs to go race to purchase a home, because things might, ratios might come back into more reasonable space here, hopefully sooner than later. But in general, I think it's a good goal to seek to own your own home. And home ownership provides things in addition to just dollars as investment, but it really does feel there's security in knowing that you own your home, and you actually do make it more of the space that you want to be in, both your yard and the inside, because you know that you can own it, and you're not going to probably do especially nice things on a place that you rent. So good aspiration. I do recommend make thy dwelling a profitable investment.
Awesome. And last but not least, cure number 7, ensure a future income or secure your future. Admittedly, this is an area I'm probably the weakest in. I have too many present Harrison responsibilities that I couldn't possibly have enough assets to help out future Harrison, or I'll get to him later. This is usually my reasoning when it comes to thinking about the future or thinking about, what can I do next to improve for a week ahead, for a month ahead, for a year ahead, or the list goes on. This is definitely a weak point, but it is something that this book touches on quite a bit and makes it very apparent that it is something that is easy to do, or maybe not so easy, but very simple to do, in that the ability to secure your future and start planning for your future is very out there. It is available, it's attainable, it's tangible, and the ability to do so is so readily available that the book says no man can afford to not secure their future. And one of these ways is just investing, is starting to save, and that's kind of harkens back to cure number 1, which is start that purse to fattening and saving that 10%. Even saving that 10%, that's helping out future Harrison for a week ahead or a month ahead or a year ahead, or the list goes on. And these many ways, it's just so apparent and important that you should be doing that, because when future Harrison's old and future Harrison is not able to work anymore, then I'd be remiss to find out, well, past Harrison at age 25 could have done way more to help out 80-year-old Harrison. So that probably applies to a lot of people. That applies to me for sure. So I don't know if I have anything to add on to the future part, since we're a little bit distant in a couple years, as what you might have done when I was 25 to where you're at right now that has helped you set up yourself for 10 years ago, 20 years ago, even right now.
Oh, to that, that's a good question. I would say that by the grace of God, honestly, by the grace of God, because I wasn't raised in a fiscally wise home. Mom and dad just didn't think that way. But I'll say by the grace of God, I came across the right books and the right content and paid attention. And I did stupid stuff, but not too much. So I think problem prevention goes a long way. That's not to say, if someone's stubbed their toe, you can always get on the path, and you can always recover. But thank God that I guess just only by His grace we didn't do too much stupid. We did only a little bit. But I would say, were there other aspects, Harrison, of the book that you could say made big impressions on you?
Yeah, I forgot. One thing that I have written down that I think is like one of my biggest takeaways from the book is make your money work for you, or you'll always be working for your money. And to that, I think if I'm always working for my money, obviously I'm going to be working for a very long time, and that's totally normal, and that's what everyone should be doing and probably is doing. But I guess what I mean is to the cures, making your money work for you, making each gold piece in your purse a slave to the next and a slave to the next. To that, if I'm not doing that, then I'm probably just going to keep making the same amount and probably keep saving the same amount and never really break that barrier to entry into future wealth. And whether or not that is the thing that stokes the fire right now and will for the rest of my life is to be determined. But for right now, that is the thing that I think is stoking the fire quite a bit and is making me rethink or think twice about certain expenditures or certain things that I'm paying money for now that I probably don't need to be right now, or things that I could be using my money for, and it's that opportunity to save, but instead I'm spending. And so just those different opportunity costs that come up in my life that I'm thinking twice about now, rather than just floating my way through and really taking things as they come, rather than thinking ahead and thinking about making my money work for me rather than the other way around. So
I think the thing that has resonated with me on this read, and I read this book probably every 2 or 3 years, and so this time the thing that is sticking with me is there's a quote, hath thou the soul of a slave? Hath thou the soul of a slave? So what does it mean to have a soul of a slave? That means that the way you think about money is really convoluted, and it's tainted, and it's not thinking rightly about money. It's where you live probably in a mindset of scarcity, and you think if someone has more, that means you probably have less. And it means that whatever you have, you clutch too tightly because you're afraid if you give up what you have, that there's no more in store for you. And of course, we know our Bible tells us that our Father owns cattle of 1,000 hills, so there's no ending to the bounty. But if you have the soul of a slave, that means that if someone were to give you $1 million and check back with you 5 years later, best case, you probably have $1 million because you did what the guy did with the talent and buried it. That's best case. Worst case, the money's gone. It's all gone because you didn't have a healthy mental and maybe even spiritual backing underpinning foundation as it relates to that. There's a book called Psychology of Money. It's very, very popular, and that kind of deals with the more complicated mental, psychological aspects. But hast thou a soul of a slave? So, but by the grace of God, we should try to avoid that. So Harrison, to whom or what type of people would you recommend this book to read?
The short answer would be anyone, as I think we've talked about before. But in more specifically, I think anyone who has or a want to accrue wealth, wants to change their money habits for the better, and don't know where to start, or who has a lot of money but doesn't know what to do with it, I think are the people that I would recommend this book to the most. People who are seeking to make a difference. Because I think just about anyone could read this book, but I don't think just anyone will take away from it what it's really trying to convey or what it's really trying to help the reader with. So to say anyone, I think is broad and I think is appropriate, but to be more specific, anyone with a want. So that's who I would recommend it to.
So, last question. Harrison, what do you think your next steps might be to apply some of this material?
Save. Save, and maybe a little bit more for good measure. I think that's one area that I'm building on right now as we've been reading the book, that I've been faithfully saving. It's been definitely difficult at times, even within the last month of reading this book, or 2 months, give or take, that we've been reading this. Because like as I mentioned before, with saving, I could find this, that, or the third reason to use that extra 10% to go towards something that I've got going on in life. But the book mentions there's some peculiar magic that there is about saving, and that he still finds it within his means to use that extra 90% to make do or to live as he was before, even without that 10%. Obviously for me and for you, tithe takes that 10%, or we give that 10% back to God. So that is a little bit different than how this book is approaching monies, because with them, they don't include that extra 10%. But for me, there's that 10% tithe first, then there's that 10% savings, and then the 80% is for me to figure out what to do with. But thinking in that way and thinking about that actively every time I do get a paycheck has been the thing that's been making a difference. And thinking about, okay, I've got to get my emergency fund built up and back to where it was before. Because for me, I'm in school right now, and that definitely was whittled away here and there over the past year or so, for this, that, and the third reason. But saving is definitely the first step for me that I'm going to be striving for as best I can after reading this book. And then I'll go back to my notes, and I'll probably go back to the book at some point and start reassessing, okay, I've got my emergency fund. I can go here. I can go there. This is where my next steps would be. And then obviously I have you to help out with that, maybe with hey, what do I do here? Yeah, that's what I would think my next steps are, what I've taken and where I'm going to be going with the book next.
Excellent. Well, Harrison, it's been a real pleasure. I know we've known each other for a number of years, but I think we've had probably more FaceTime, over the past, 4 or 5 weeks than over the entire previous 10 years. And I thank you for coming prepared each time. Obviously that you did the work, you took the notes, you had good questions. And it's been a real pleasure.
I agree.
And so with that, we will sign off until next time.